I am unashamed. What about you?
Welcome back to the Unashamed podcast. Jase, you had an interesting day yesterday.
I was checking my phone and Zach sent me a text. I'm looking at you, Zach. Just, hey.
Hey, man.
We text each other a lot sometimes when we're actually here talking to you guys. It's a little bit
funny.
Crazy.
No question
Maddie will
about
text
that.
me something and Zach will text me.
Yeah, we're starting a little late today. Old Jase had a rare midweek event, and it's my first event of 2000.
Well, the problem was we had planned on this a while back because we've obviously known about the event, but then we had the recent ice apocalypse, and which pushed all our recording to this week, and so it's been a little bit of a schedule buster, I would call it.
Well, I was going to a little place called Dalton, Georgia, and I'd been in the area. Oh, this is going to be funny.
Isn't that where Triple J, Johnny Joey Jones is from Dalton?
He may be.
I think he is.
If you need some carpet, you can ask him.
Yeah, because they make carpet there.
It's
right?
the carpet capital.
Yeah, that's where he's from.
Of the world.
I wish I'd have known that.
So look, you know what I did in my opener? Because I guess the older I get, which look, I want to say this right off the bat. First event of the year, they said you have 40 minutes. And I stopped at 39.
Well, that's a miracle.
Without any notes.
That's a miracle, dude.
So it was really good.
Our first event we had last week, we only had 30 minutes because they had a Q&A after. But it's very hard for Lisa and I both to do our presentation in 30 minutes.
So anyway, for my opener, I mean, look, the trip got bumpy. The reason we were late is
because you went on somebody sent a plane for you.
Yeah, and I usually don't do that,
right?
Because we've had some rough experiences. I think Aunt Bonnie, who travels with me when Missy doesn't go, she sends a representative to watch me, I guess. No, she does a good job organizing events, and everybody needs an Aunt Bonnie.
She's a little. I call her Bonnie the Bulldog.
Yeah,
Bonnie the Bulldog.
Well,
affectionate bulldog though.
She got really quiet last night because
of this bumpy plane ride.
Our trip was filled with "Are you ready to meet your maker?" moments, but it's no big deal. But you can't be preaching that. I mean, that was part of my sermon last night. It's like, are you ready to meet your maker? And then not go live that out in tough conditions to fly. But because it was quite the rainstorm when we left, and when we came back, we ran into a fog issue.
All this ice and snow here. Last night, it was like those movies you watch about Jack the Ripper in London, like in 1800. Yeah. And it's all just like this murky, fog. That's what it reminded me of.
I felt that last night. Yeah. But anyway, my opening line, this is kind of silly, but I thought I'd try it. Because I thought, what's this place famous for? Carpet. So I got up there and I was like, oh, it's good to be in Dalton, Georgia. I did my Larry the Cable Guy joke. When's the last time y'all heard that? It was a little chuckle. And I said, man, y'all look good for a bunch of carpetbaggers. They actually laughed at that. They laughed at that one.
That's good.
But then I said, well, I'll start this out with a movie clip that I will attempt to reenact. And we'll have a name that movie clip.
I know which one you're going to do.
And I said, so here he is. He's on a... what's those things called?
Ferry.
He's on a ferry. I got that right. And I was like, pull him, you'll pull. And about 3 people hollered out, hello, Josie Wells. And I was like, y'all got that from
impressive.
That? Yeah.
That's impressive.
I said there was a man selling elixir on that ferry. And he said it was about good for anything, which, one bottle for, I think it was 10 cents. You get 2 for 20. Yeah. And
10 cents.
So Eastwood said, yeah, that stuff worked good on about anything, huh? And he's like, yes, sir, indeed. So he
thought he had him a sale.
He takes a big tobacco-filled, juicy spit and just spits right on the man's chest because he had a white suit. And he said, well, how's it on stains? And then there was a little, chuckle from Eastwood's counterparts. They were,
And remember, even Emil was like, he liked it.
Funny. So look, I did that. Then when I got to, Jesus dying on the cross, I was going to bring that back up. Of course, I forgot because I was talking about, there's
stain of sin or something.
Yeah, the stain. I mean, it's hard to. That's where we're at in 1 John.
That would have been a good comment.
How do you remove the stains of sin in your life? Well, there's a God, and He loves us. And
the 10-cent elixir is not going to do it.
Not going to do it. And so that they didn't really laugh at that, but it broke the ice. And
but the line, because it was, well, Mr. Carpetbagger, that was
that was funny. Yeah. And then when I told that, and because nobody really laughed, I was like, that's as good as this is going to get, Then they all laugh.
Yeah,
I was like, I thought that was funny.
Zach, are you familiar with why they called the people that were coming down from the north to the south? They called them carpetbaggers. But do you know the origin of that? Have you ever? I don't know why they call.
Give him 60 seconds and he'll use his AI stuff, and he'll probably have an answer.
Well, that's why I threw it out there.
Let's let him research.
My initial instinct was I don't have to know the answer to that, so let's just look it up. Why were they called carpetbaggers? I think we all should make a stab at it before we answer.
Yeah, because I was trying to think in my mind just to practically have an answer for that, and I'm not sure. I don't understand it. Unless they had bags with the.
I don't know.
Carpet.
I think it was
bags of carpet.
I know it was something about accumulating wealth off of basically coming.
It was kind of a slur, though, right? I mean, it was like it wasn't seen as a good thing.
Like they come in and they have a little bit of capital, and then they can go up and buy up farms or things like that. That's what I think it was. But let me look and see.
Well, look, I was tempted last night because, my house with the ice dams phenomenon, because we had an insurance adjuster before I left to come here, and I had to get a ride because my truck's still at the airport. I'll tell you that story in a minute, but I've been going without a truck.
Did you walk home last night?
Pretty much, Al. Al, you're not going to believe what happened to me last night. It's crazy. But anyway, I was tempted.
I got the answer. When you
all right, go ahead.
All right,
yeah,
go ahead.
Breaking news.
Breaking news.
We're going to introduce a breaking news.
Yeah, we're going to
do
more breaking news segments
and current event segments.
We need some kind of musical lead in or something.
So during the Civil War, these Northerners who went to the South after the Civil War carried all their belongings in a cheap suitcase made of a carpet fabric, a carpet bag, and the label was meant as an insult, implying they were poor, opportunistic outsiders who came to profit politically or economically during Reconstruction.
Well, no wonder nobody laughed. No, they actually did laugh.
Yeah.
It was kind of a slur.
I might should have done some research before I dropped that.
Yeah, you carpet baggers.
You've come down here to Georgia, you cheap carpet bagger.
I can hear it
Jase
now.
insulted him, and he didn't even know he did
They
it.
had a board meeting probably after, and we paid this guy to come here and do this to us.
Yeah.
This dumb redneck from Louisiana.
No, the event was, it was fantastic. It was close to my
I know
heart,
they loved it.
which is why I made it work, because it was one of these FCA fundraisers, which that is my story of coming to Jesus. I was 14, and I said last night the hardest thing to do for my life was to follow Jesus at 14 and go to a public high school. Right. It's just very difficult.
Yeah.
And I think it was intense. I mean, I was like, this is great. We're supporting this. We're giving kids an outlet to not only do something good, clean, and fun, play sports, but to be unashamed that they follow Jesus. And I wish I would have had somebody tell me, hey, this is a good thing, you know, when I was 14. So, because it is very difficult. So, and I spoke to the kids before the event. I mean, they probably had 150. And I mean, that was a lot of people last night. It was Tuesday night. It was well over 1,000 at the arena. And it was fantastic. Now, getting there, we were in this cool little plane. I've ridden on a lot of planes, Al. I know you have. But I've never ridden on the name of it was a Siri. It's called a Cirrus. It's like circus, except instead of the C, it's an R. So Cirrus.
Okay.
and there's only like, I guess 600 of them
was it
in
a
the
jet
world.
or a
No, it's a
prop?
jet.
Yeah.
It's a one-engine
Oh,
jet.
yeah. I've seen
And the
this.
other pilot called it a hot rod.
Yeah.
Because we got in that thing, and it can move.
Takes off like a rocket
But
ship.
it felt like we were in a sci-fi movie because it's real computer generated, and it's like a little capsule, and you're just. But here's what's funny. So the pilot, who just donated his time, and he owns the plane.
Yeah.
And he does this every year for the event. He goes and picks a guy up, and or I guess it's been guys that have spoken at this thing, and so he, when he's giving us a little safety meeting here before we take off. So it's me and Aunt Bonnie, and on the way there it was him and his son, who's also a pilot. He's like, now if we die, and I kind of stopped. I mean, this was the safety meeting. He started off, now if we die. He said, push this red button. And look, it was literally like a sci-fi movie. There was a big red button in the middle of the plane. He said, that computer will take you home to the nearest airport. I was like, you serious, Clark? Now he said, he said,
I'm glad to know there's a red button.
There was a red button,
That
and
would make me feel pretty good.
it looked like a presidential red button.
Yeah, right,
It was
right.
like, here it is. So this was hilarious. And so he said, he said, this only has one engine. That's what's different about this plane, which I figured out later. That's why it's half the price.
Yeah.
But the problem is you're probably already going there in your mind. Well, if your engine blows,
Yeah, you're done.
there's no backup engine.
Yeah,
He
the
said,
red button doesn't help then.
So look, he said, if the engine blows, he said, we pull this lever, and it was a parachute lever. He said, it actually has a parachute. And he said, that's just if the engine blows. He said, it's happened twice. Oh, yeah. And he said, and no one was injured. We safely landed. So I was like, gulp. What's crazy
So
is
he's
how,
landed twice without an engine?
without an engine.
Wow.
He's landed that plane twice.
Wow.
And nobody got injured.
So last time I was in Louisiana, I had about 3 nights with you, cousin Jase, in the middle of it. I think you were sleeping on a recliner. I was sleeping on a hard couch. So that night at your house, that 4th night out at your house on the Helix mattress.
Welcome back to
Thank you,
living.
Jesus.
Yes,
That was good.
because I have Helix mattresses all throughout my house. Because we're a Helix family, and great night's sleep, as Zach has mentioned, and also for our guest as well. And Zach, we took a quiz through Helix to find out exactly what fits you the best. I think Lisa and I are Moonlight. What was yours, Zach? Do you remember?
We were Midnight Lux mattress, which is not too firm, not too soft, kind of in between, and it's perfect for me and Jill because we're both side sleepers.
So we've had ours for about 4 years. We love it, and they have a risk-free 120 days for you to try this out. But trust me, you're not going to want to send it back. We all use them. We all sleep better. Hip and shoulder pain is gone because of this. So we want to encourage you to check them out. Go to helixsleep.com/unashamed for 27% off site-wide, exclusive for listeners of Unashamed. That's helixsleep.com/unashamed for 27% off site-wide. Make sure you enter our show name into the post-purchase survey so they know that we sent you. helixsleep.com/unashamed.
And I was like, wow, I looked at Bonnie, and she turned a shade of white that I hadn't seen. I was like, well, now we know the rules of engagement. Well, none of this really matters until, on the way home. Because we got there, it was the smoothest plane ride I've ever been on.
And you're thinking,
it was
this-
quick.
Yeah.
And I thought, man, we're flying
Easy
outer
peasy,
space, you
yeah.
know. So when we come back, what happened was that front came through, and then there was a fog alert. So he thought we were going to have to spend the night and everything, but he said, I think we can make it. And he, because you're part of this. I had the earphones on. We're listening to them talk and all, and which was great on the way there. On the way back, it's a little too close to the sausage being made because there was a lot of, because as soon as we got up, he's like, is there ice on the wings? Is there ice on the wings? I see ice on the wings. I was like, is that bad? He's like, yeah, that's not good. But anyway.
Yeah, that's why they de-ice them. Yeah.
So you're looking at these airports, and there's little meters, and if it turns pink, that means too much fog, can't land. So it would turn pink, like, because we're coming into Monroe. Then it would go to yellow. He's like, go to yellow. And we're flying. He's like, well, I see lights. And so anyway, he's like, we think we can make it. So we start going down to land in Monroe. And we're seeing lights and everything. But he had said before, this fog will fool you. Because from up above it, you can see through holes in it. And he's like, sometimes you get down there.
Just what we talking, one pilot?
No, we had 2 pilots.
He and his son.
And we start going down through the fog. And all of a sudden, the lights go off. You can't see anything. And, he's talking to the guy. And the guy's like, when's the last time someone's landed here? And he's like, oh, it's been 3 or 4 hours. And he's like, well, that doesn't give us any help, So but I heard the guy say, when you cross whatever the 362 marker was, that's when you'll have to make that decision. And so we're coming down through the fog, and I see that 362. I just saw it for a glimpsing second, and we keep going down, and you can't see. And I had said a prayer. I was like, we did a really good event tonight. I'm sure this is going to be fine. And for some reason in my mind, I pictured the Red Sea. I was like, I think this fog's just going to open up, and we're going to be able to see, because we're coming down, and we're down to 300 or 400 feet here.
Yeah, we're getting close,
and we can't see. And so, for some reason, we just kept going, and I still can't see. And I literally looked out the window, and I was like, we need this fog.
I mean, this is how what you were involved in. This is exactly. I mean, that's scary, because the pilots are a little bit more aggressive. You're like, but that's why these small planes, they crash all the time.
Yeah, I was living my life through the pilot, scary. And I thought
this is how Kobe Bryant died. By the way.
So look, then I looked over at I looked at the red button, and I thought, why are we not pushing that? You know what I mean?
Let the computer do it.
We're this close, Red button. Nobody's looking at the red button. I'm looking at the red button. And I looked at Bonnie.
What does the body do it?
She is just deathly silent, which is very unusual. That's why I knew.
Yeah.
And the other pilot said, Miss Aunt Bonnie, you okay? You're kind of quiet back there, because we were all talking.
Yeah.
And about 2 seconds before I was trying, it's kind of like when you're riding with somebody and you feel like they should be braking, and you start mashing the passenger floorboard as hard as you can. I do it with my wife all the time.
Or grip the thing
she's
up.
Like, is something wrong with your leg? And I'm like, I'm trying to push the brake from here. Slow this thing down. Well, I was doing that, like, pull up. I was thinking, pull up. And so about 2 or 3 seconds later, we pulled up, immediately. So then it gets to, now what? Well, let's check the fuel. Now we're checking the fuel. I mean, we're done with that. Yeah. It's like we have to find an alternate, and we were going to do Ruston. That was the plan. But then we looked at Ruston when now it's pink. Yeah. So he's like, 2 choices, El Dorado or Shreveport. And I said, well, what are the people on those towers saying? He's like, let's ask them. Well, El Dorado was...
I'm more concerned that you are involved in the process.
I was involved in the process.
That concerns me, because it's like, you're just sitting in the back.
You're not supposed to know how the sausage is made.
No, because he was like...
You're supposed to be behind at the counter ordering the meat. You're not supposed to be back there with
I want it packaged.
In his defense...
I don't want to know. I don't want to know.
Because old Steve was a spectacular pilot. He was like, doesn't matter to us. We're getting out of here. But... You're going to be without a vehicle. Yeah. It's the middle of the night.
So he's asking you more because you know the area.
Yeah, that's right. I was like, let's go to El Dorado, because I heard when he said it's all clear, no fog. Because I was thinking Shreveport, we're still in Louisiana. Because we were going to go to Ruston. That was the backup plan. Yeah, it was now fog. Then I was like, maybe this thing's moving west. Yeah. I mean, because then I thought, well, how much fuel we got? He's like, well, we got enough to make it to Shreveport. And I was like, well, then what if it's fogged up?
That's right.
We're pushing that red button in. Or the parachute.
Jase is bad wanting to push the button.
I have to admit, I was ready, I'm always ready.
Yeah.
And I've been involved in a couple of emergency landings, so I wasn't concerned about it, but I just thought, This is pretty hairy. I mean, because that fog, he was not landing there. You could not see.
I could
the
not
ground.
see driving last night. I mean, like there were a couple of times driving home.
That's super dangerous.
I mean, that's how bad the fog was.
But you know what? We would have had one heck of a podcast, Jase.
This is when all the excitement started, when I landed in a little place called El Dorado, Arkansas. And we got there.
Dog.
And, of course, I was telling Missy, I was like, what time? Bonnie, I was like, what time is it? After 10 o'clock? And the time change, it all messed up. I was like, she turns into a pumpkin at 10. Because I was like, I have a friend in Ruston I was going to call and get a ride. And, but El Dorado, I don't know anybody. And so I thought, it's only an hour and 20 minutes.
Right.
Maybe we can get Missy to come pick us up. That was the plan. And so I sent her a message saying, would you like to come pick us up in El Dorado, Arkansas? No response. But so Bonnie started calling her just like rapidly. And she was like, well, yeah, let me get settled. Because she was in the bed dozing off to sleep. Yeah. So it's like, let me get settled. What does that mean? I got to get my shoes on. She was fixed to go to sleep. Yeah. And so she was saying,
you've startled her.
Crazy thing. Let me get settled and get my shoes on. And so she starts heading to El Dorado. So we're like, the plan was to call an Uber driver and meet her like halfway. So, but we pulled in this airport, and there was a woman who lived at the airport that was under construction. And because I was like, they said, oh, there's somebody in there. I was like, well, great, they can let us in. Because at this point, we're waiting out in the cold. Trying to find an Uber driver, right. But so we went in there. And,
at 10 o'clock in El
Dorado.
Well,
then there's another employee that's fueling up the plane. I'm like, man, this is not bad for El Dorado. No. And his name was Bobby, beast of a man. He walked in, and I introduced myself because I thought, I got to make some contacts quick because we're in the middle of nowhere. And I told him who I was. He said, oh, I know who you are, which I thought was a good sign. Yeah. I was like, well, great. And I was like, well, look, I guess we're going to get an Uber. And he's like, no, you don't get an Uber in El Dorado. He said, you can call one, but good luck if he shows up. But so anyway, he said, well, where you need to go? And I was like, well, I'm not sure. I want to meet my wife somewhere. And he's like, let's go. So
Beast Bobby.
We took off. Oh, yeah, he got some gas, and he's driving pretty rapidly. And all of a sudden, I look up, and there's two deer standing, I would say 10 feet in front of our vehicle that's going, let's just put it, we're going at the full maximum amount of the speed limit. And I thought, this is where it ends.
You survived the plane ride to only now roll.
Let me tell you something. That joker, I would sponsor him in some kind of NASCAR race because in a moment, he took care of Aunt Bonnie because she was fixed to go out the windshield.
Yeah.
Because it was a brake, swerve, and he just split the uprights of deer in a flash. And I braced for impact and thought, how in the world did he go through? Because it was a whole herd of deer, but he just went through two of them. I mean, just in the middle of the road. And I thought, wow, that just happened. He's like, you okay, Aunt Bonnie?
So no wonder Bonnie sent me a note says she's resigned from taking care of Jase now, and I understand.
So anyway, long story short, we start trying to call Missy, and he's like, "Meet me at the old stone church." And he told Missy that, and she's like, "Old Stone Church." Now, how do I? He's like, "No, it's not it's just a road." And so after we hung up, I thought, I don't think we're going to meet her there because she had no idea.
Right.
He's like, oh, I thought she had been up this way before. I was like, well, she has, but that was kind of we got a guy like that, John Godwin, go down there, there's 3 curves, there's a silo on the left, and take a right.
There's usually a guy named Jase that's out by his truck. Yeah.
Got an old hound dog that'll probably come up there, but he won't bite. So then I started thinking, well, at some point, we're going to pass each other. And he's like, and I said that, and he's like, what's she drive? And I said, I told him the story because it's embarrassing to say we have a Wagoneer. It's like the most expensive car you can buy. It's like it was during COVID. She had to have a vehicle. That's the only one for sale.
Trying to justify the car.
Yeah. And I said, and trust me, if she meets at Old Stone Point, somebody's going to think she has some drugs in her car. Because why would somebody be parked on the side of the road at midnight in this fancy car? And he said, what's your drive? I was like, big white Wagoneer. You got to remember, we've been on the road here for 30, 40 minutes. And she passes us at that moment. He said, white Wagoneer. So you're like, well, why aren't you calling her? We don't have a signal.
That's right.
That joker did a U-turn in the road because he thought, if we can't get a hold of her, she's going to head to the airport. And sure enough, Bonnie said, I got her. And she's like, we just passed you. We pull, I mean, it's like midnight. We pull on the side of the road. She's got her flashers on, and that's how I got with her. And
That's the craziest story
we
ever.
limped home. I gave old Bobby a Hondo, and I said, I want it because he's got a wife and 4 daughters, and and for him to do that, he didn't have to do that.
No, of course he didn't.
And we're out there, missing deer, and I thought, I'm buying you and your wife. I thought he'd say, no. He's like, well, thank you.
Well, he was probably hoping. He knew you were a famous person.
Well, I thought this guy put his life on the line.
So did you make it to Farmville, Spearsville area? Where were you? Do you even know where you were?
When we met?
Yeah.
Middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
Middle of nowhere on the side of the road.
Probably around Spearsville down there somewhere, just north of Farmville. That's
yeah,
where you
yeah,
come
we were kind of in between
Yeah.
El Dorado and
there's no signal. You're exactly right because that's the dead zone. Of
So
it.
anyway, that was the trip.
Moral of the story: flying is dangerous. So be careful.
But driving is actually statistically much more dangerous.
No, old Steve-O on the plane was a true professional. It's just it's a more weird experience when you're listening. Look, I got news for you. They're doing that every time somebody's flying.
Yeah.
They're talking about these things. But we're in on the conversation. So he said that.
Yeah.
He's like, because they were laughing. And, I mean, there was zero animosity.
Steve-O was not. He never had his blood pressure raise up at all.
No.
Yeah, because they do it all. And even if they do, you'd never know.
So if you've been waiting for the right time to buy a home, honestly, this might be it. Look, I've bought a lot of homes over the years.
I got a granddaughter that just bought a home as well, so this is very near and dear to us.
Yeah, the market looks a lot different than it did even a year ago. There's more inventory, bidding wars have cooled off, and buyers finally have a little bit of breathing room again, but that means more choices and more negotiating power and more control over the deal for you. But here's the catch. It's not going to last forever because as inflation eases and the feds cut the rates, which is going to happen, more buyers are going to jump back into the market. And when they do, competition will heat up fast and prices usually follow. So now might be the perfect time to be looking. That's why being prepared now really matters. And that's where my friends Andrew and Todd at Union Home Mortgage come in. With over 40 years of experience, there really is no pressure and no guesswork. Plus, they handle everything in-house. So whether you're a first-time home buyer trying to figure out how to qualify, or if you're self-employed or trying to figure out how to show your income through that, or if you're looking to refi to lower your debt, all of that they can handle. Talk to Andrew and Todd. I'm telling you, these guys are amazing. These are the guys that I trust. I met them at a worship event in Monroe, Louisiana. These guys love Jesus, and I love that about them because I know they're going to handle things with integrity. So you guys can get started today at andrewandtodd.com. That's andrewandtodd.com, or you can call 888-888-1172. That's 888-888-1172. Visit andrewandtodd.com or call 888-888-1172. These are the guys you can count on.
So, Zach, I mean, the latest news about Epstein, I think, has been pretty amazing. Jase, you've kind of been out of the loop because you hadn't had
I have, but
no
I've
internet.
heard about it, and it's sickening that this kind of stuff goes on our planet. But look, in reality, are we really shocked? I mean, 1 John 5, the last verse in his sermon, is he says, we know that the whole world is under the control of the evil one.
Yeah.
But we know we're children of God.
Right.
And that this spiritual war is rampant and
it's
raging. And when these things come out, why are we really shocked?
Right.
Well, you remember because I know evidently they
They just had a big dump, like
Yeah.
Was it 3,500 pages of emails and
I
materials?
think it was way more than that. But
maybe,
I don't know.
Maybe it was 3,500,000.
Now, I haven't had the internet or a TV in 2 weeks. I still don't.
I looked it up earlier when we were talking.
Well, here's what I want to say about that. Al, you remember in that study when we were doing about, I think it was when we were talking about the anointing and how kings were anointed with oil. And I mean, it kind of goes back to the garden of this liquid life and setting people apart. And God himself's like, you don't need a king. I am the king.
Yeah.
But all the people wanted kings.
Yeah.
Well, there was a
and he also knew, we were setting that up because he also knew that he would come here as Jesus Christ, I mean, in Jesus, who would be the king.
Exactly.
So he
knew
he's
the
like,
plan.
I got the king coming, you know.
Yeah, he's like, I got it. But look, what do humans do?
That's
oh, no.
right.
We're like, no.
We want to be like
got
them.
it.
Yeah.
And but I remember from that study in Deuteronomy 17 when he was like, okay, you want a king? I'll give you a king, but I'm telling you, you should listen to me. And there was like 3 rules for the king. And what's amazing, you said, what's this got to do with Epstein or Evilstein, however you want to? I mean, because you start looking in this, you're like, people are like fascinated that powerful people are doing evil things.
Yeah.
Trust me, they've been doing that since the garden.
Exactly.
And so, but I wanted to read this because isn't this interesting? I don't know when Deuteronomy was written.
Well, Moses wrote it, and so this would have been, quite a bit before the actual king thing happened. I mean, we're talking hundreds of years prior. So.
Yeah. So he gives the kind of the rules on if we're going to have a king. And isn't it interesting? This is Deuteronomy 17:16. The king, moreover, must not acquire great numbers of horses for himself or make the people return to Egypt. You are not to go back that way again, which back then horses, tanks, power, that was the power.
Yeah.
Whoever had the most horses and the most men won. So it's a power thing.
Remember that when this was written, Pharaoh had all the horses, and remember, God had shown him he was more powerful than the horses already.
Exactly. He must not take a lot of wives, or his heart will be led astray. So here we have the sex thing, because you're the king. You can do whatever you want to.
Any wives as you can get.
He must not accumulate large amounts of silver and gold.
Money, money, money.
So you just think, we're in 1 John 2, talking about don't love the world and the cravings of sinful man, and that's where this goes off
money,
the rails.
sex, and power, and this whole Epstein affair that's what it is. People that are very powerful have a lot of money.
Yeah,
and this whole thing is built around sex. That was the whole purpose of the whole thing. And of course, it was people underage. It was terrible things.
Oh, kids,
illegal,
and what I don't know. I mean, I haven't read all this stuff, but it just seems like it's this devious anti-decreation of what humanity is supposed to look like in view of God, and to do the very opposite. And death is king, and abuse is king, and you're looking at babies as just
sexual objects.
Yeah.
So it's amazing to me, and there's also you mentioned it. There's also kind of a weird fascination of people wanting to know more and more about it. Now I'm all about the accountability idea. If people broke laws,
I don't believe there's been one arrest in the whole thing.
I don't think so. Well, except for the woman that was helping him, right? They arrested her. But you're right, Jason. Of course, then they had arrested him, and then he either killed himself or was murdered, and that's a whole other thing. But the thing about it is there's a weird fascination about wanting to know all this stuff. I'm all about accountability for it, but then I don't want to know the details of all this sick stuff.
It's kind of sickening, and I mean, one of the things I was thinking, because we're going through this 1 John study, and you read about when John kind of juxtaposes the world, quote unquote, with life in Christ, participation in Christ, but Epstein, what he really represents like the end conclusion of the world. Like it's all about sexual appetite, sexual conquest, power, which is interesting too. I think that it wasn't just about sex; it was also about power and money. And it's interesting how all 3 of those things were like in the same exact entrapment, right? And we don't know the full story of what all he was involved in, but like it's clearly like a picture. Like at the end of it, you're just like, that's not very appealing. Yeah, I mean, I don't know anyone that would look at the way he ended and think, man, if he had all the power, all the money, and all the sexual exploits that he could muster up and imagine, and now the world's looking at that, and I think we're collectively condemning it, but there is a weird, also kind of like a weird fascination with it as well, Al.
Well, it is. And you remember, Zach, about, I want to say it was a decade prior to when they arrested him and the whole thing happened the last few years ago. There was a decade before that. They had him. Like, he was in Florida. They had him up on charges, and they basically just let him walk. I mean, he had already been caught once in this whole regime, and I guess the powerful people thwarted it, and the government didn't get him. And so then there was another decade of this stuff, that went on and on. And I guess that shows you what happens, though, when you get into there's something about living your life with a clear conscience. I mean, we all admit we're sinners, but you avoid stuff like anything like this, and you live with a clear conscience. Man, you don't have to worry about somebody knocking your door down to find out some secret cabal you were involved in. I mean, that's what the whole point of this text we're in 1 John.
Well, what stood out to me was you have the Department of Justice releasing all this injustice that happened.
Yeah.
And that's why I just thought, even last night, I guess when I got to our spiritual war part while I was speaking and our sinful behavior and the world, and I actually brought up 1 John. I said, we're studying 1 John in the podcast, which took me 5 minutes to realize I'll probably already get off this if I want to speak in 40 minutes. And I zeroed in on it more because everybody's conscious of this. But that's why when we take for granted that God is just, He will, think about the verse, He will pay back trouble and those who give you trouble. And I thought about Romans 2, like in verse 5, where it says, because of your stubbornness and your unrepentant heart, you are storing up wrath against yourself for the day of God's wrath, when His righteous judgment will be revealed. God will give to each person according to what he's done. I mean, He's going to make things right. To those who by persistence in doing good seek glory, honor, and immortality, He will give eternal life. But those who are self-seeking and who reject the truth and follow evil, there'll be wrath and anger. There will be trouble and distress for every human being who does evil. First for the Jew, then for the Gentile. But glory, honor, and peace for everyone who does good. For God, verse 11, does not show favoritism.
So you guys know I got 5 kids, which means it costs a fortune to get health insurance for all 7 of us. So when Christian Healthcare Ministries came along, I was like, sign me up. So for our family, switching to CHM wasn't just about saving money, though, although it did come in about half the cost, which is absolutely amazing. But it's also about aligning with what we believe, and it feels more like a community and not a bureaucracy. And so what we do is we can submit our medical bills each month as they occur. And then what happens is believers from all over the country pitch in, and they also lift up your family in prayer, which is pretty amazing. Al, you guys have used cost-sharing plans before and greatly benefited from it.
Yeah, big benefit. Lisa went through her breast cancer. These guys walked alongside us. Not only did it help us financially, but as you said, I mean, just the prayers and knowing people were mentioned, and it gave us the opportunity to pray for other people that we were helping as well. So great experience with this health cost share.
Yeah, another benefit is you have a ton more flexibility, so you can go to whatever doctor you want without having to go through some middleman. They've already shared more than $12 billion in medical bills together, so you know that this thing is solid. And honestly, I should have done this years ago so that I could stop feeding money into a broken system. So ditch your traditional health insurance. Join CHM today by visiting chministries.org/unashamed. That's chministries.org/unashamed, chministries.org/unashamed. What's interesting about that, too, is when you read on in the whole Romans 2 passage, that wrath that God's going to unleash on these people it's very interesting because the wrath of God, at least in the case of the Roman that text in Romans 2, was to be left over to your own vices, to be given a God. So God's wrath was not, in that case, was not Him pouring it out. It was more like, I'm going to release you to your own vices, and you're going to create your own hell. It's kind of what we've been talking about in our we've been doing the C.S. Lewis course, and Lewis talked a lot about this as well when he wrote a couple of his books, Screwtape Letters and The Great Divorce. It's like being left to yourself. And so when you read, 1 John 2, like you could think about, like if you think, what's a good parable of the world? Because it says, don't love the world or anything in it. He's not talking about like the creation. He's not talking about, like, I love the creation. We love the duck hunt. We love to be out in nature. We love trees. That's not what he's talking about. He's talking about the parable of what Epstein represents and what the logic of Epstein is. This is giving yourself over to be consumed by the lust of the world, and it's interesting that the text we're in fits so beautifully, not beautifully, but so tangibly into the story of what this whole debacle turned out to be in the end. You see the wrath of God right now. You see the wrath of God in the fact that he hung himself in the jail cell. All the people that were involved. Just saw that Prince Andrew got kicked out of the royal palace, the royal club, or something in the dark of night, right? Everyone's like, we don't want you to be around us. We don't want to be a part of you anymore. We don't want you to be a part of us. And that is just the natural consequences of evil, and that's what God does.
Well, and then I saw some articles about Bill Gates, the rich man, and was going to spend his last years doing all these philanthropic projects, and now he's having to defend himself for STDs he gave to his wife. But here's the thing: Satan is a cruel taskmaster, and Zach, you've quoted me before as saying that's why we like to detonate our own time bombs, because if you leave it to him, if you do things in secret, as what we're describing here, he will explode the time bomb when it's the very worst for you. Mm-hmm. He's never going to be your friend. Like you go into these secret, dark places, and I think that's part of the allure. These are wealthy, powerful people, and part of the lure of it, Zach, was probably just the secrecy of it, that they knew they were doing something wrong. We talk about it in marriage context of a lot of times. I'm trying to think of the word. There's a word, limerence. It's this idea that you're drawn to something secret, and it makes it so appealing. But then when you realize in an affair situation, these people are like, oh, this is so great. This is what I've never had at home, and blah, blah, blah. And then all of a sudden you realize it's just another person. And after a little while, when the limerence wears off, it's like, well, this person's got the same problems the other person I had.
Well, if you walk with anybody through an affair, which I know we all have walked with many, many couples through affairs and infidelity, the limerence is a real thing. That's a very, very common thing, which is essentially that you'll hear something like, man, the sex was just out of this world with this person I wasn't even married to. The intensity of the emotional and physical connection and bond, and like the way they would describe that connection, it's like it was out of this world. And it's a real thing that's called limerence. It's deceptive, but that does wear off. And when that is gone, now you're back in the same boat that you were in with your previous spouse, and now you got to fit. So it's like you got to run through that wall. But you talked about the darkness of it all, and kind of the hiding and the forbidden fruit nature of it. That really is the darkness. That's the secret network that John is talking about in 1 John 2, verse 9 and 11. What does he say? Whoever loves his brother abides in the light, and in him there is no cause for stumbling. Whoever says he's in the light and hates his brother is still in darkness. So, like, the whole thing is to come out of concealment, to come out into the light. And these networks and these, because I think it was a network here, but these evil networks, what do they all have in common? They operate in the darkness, not in the light. It's about concealment, hidden rooms. Even like NDAs, like you think about how many churches even do this now. They make you sign it. I'm like, why sign an NDA? Why do you ask people to sign NDAs? Intimidation, it's compromised people, and then you operate in this space of like darkness. When in the kingdom, it's like no. Detonate your own time bomb. Bring it all into the light. If you do sin, what do?
Yeah.
Confess your sin to one another so that you may be healed. And then that confession. The reason why that leads to healing, according to James, is because the confession actually brings into the light the thing that the devil can use to accuse you of.
Yeah, I don't want to sign NDAs. I want to sign DAs, disclosure agreements, because the more we disclose, the better off we are.
The problem is, though, if you use that principle here, they're like, well, if I confess my sins, someone will come and lock me up
Yeah.
in a prison, which is true.
It's true.
And
Yeah.
you can be healed, but that doesn't mean you're not going to be free.
Under consequences.
Yeah.
Hey,
on the
we were
earth.
talking the other day on the last time we recorded a podcast about old Jelly Roll. He's like, I was in a 8x8, and all I had was my little Bible here, and this is where I found Jesus. You know, there you go. There's your answer.
Sometimes
I got a
that's
question
what it
for y'all.
takes.
What does y'all's translation of 1 John 2:16 say? Mine says, "For all that is in the world, the desires of the flesh and the desires of the eyes and the pride of life is not from the Father, but is from the world." What does your translation
Well, this
say?
is the NIV, which I'm not gonna, stand up and defend, because a lot of times I think, but it says, "For everything in the world, the cravings of sinful man, the lust of his eyes, and the boasting of what he has and does, comes not from the Father, but from the world." But let me look it up on the Greek lexicon while you're talking.
Yeah, one translation, I'm not sure which one it is, but I have it pulled up here. It's the lust of the flesh, the lust of the eyes, and the pride of life.
Yeah.
And I thought, man, what an interesting verse that is when you think about the lust of the flesh, which really is like it's that unbridled sexual appetite. And so, you say, what should our sexual appetite be bridled? It should be bridled by love and fidelity, and
which
so
is kind of the whole point.
By doing
John's
so, you
making.
can actually
We
create
talk about love
families
for
and
God
like
and then love
societies,
for
and
other
it could do
people.
really great things.
Because
with
you're
sex.
right. Because when Jase was reading that about what he said about the kings, just think about it. I mean, how many horses are too many? How much power is too much power? People that are going for power, it's never enough. You got to have more. And the same
why I think
with
the
money, and
depravity
the same
of-
with
yeah.
the sex. It's the same. It's this unquenching thirst for something that's not healthy.
It's for more. So think
Right.
about that's such a great point that fits into the text really nicely because he goes on to say right after that he says that the desires of the world are diminishing, they're passing away. And so that's the thing that you got to keep up in the game. So Epstein and these guys, you got to get more and more perverse.
That's right.
Start bringing in the younger and younger women,
That's
the
right.
children. Then it's this all out. Then the lust of the eyes becomes about consuming people.
Right.
First visually, and then fleshly. You're consuming them. So you're curating these fantasies and your curation of all this imagery in your mind, and he's playing this out on literally a pedophile island. And then the pride of life steps in, and I'm not going to get caught.
Plus,
I'm bigger than this.
Think
I'm
about the
elite.
extortion nature of it now, because the evil one's got you. Because as Jay said, now you've broken laws. Now, not only will you lose all your stuff and your relationships, they will take away your freedom.
So the first one, where it says, the NIV says, cravings of sinful man, it seems to be more lust, like 5:24. Remember when it says you've crucified the old sinful nature with its lust and desires, the same word. Ephesians 2:3, where it says you've gratified the cravings of the sinful nature. Well, that's the same word, the lust or the lust of its desires. Few others on that. John 8:44. Remember when Jesus said, "You belong to your Father," I believe that's where he said that, the devil.
Yeah.
So let's see, what does 8:44 say? Because this is John wrote this also, so he uses the same word. 8:44. You belong to your Father, and you want to carry out your father's desire.
That's the tie-in to the evil one right there.
Ooh, we done found a smoking gun there. So John 8:44, same word is used as 1 John 2 on the first one. The cravings that's the cravings. So then they have the next one, lust. So hold on.
And that's why it's such a damnable thing, because
it's the same word.
same word.
The where it says cravings of sinful man, the lust of his eyes, but the cravings and lust are actually
because it's what you see.
It's the exact same word.
Yeah, it's in the mind. But remember, Jesus said that your eyes are the window into your soul. The idea about what you choose to look at.
Yeah, it goes back to the garden when she saw that fruit. There was a desire there.
That's right. She saw that it was desirable for gaining wisdom and looked good to eat. Remember, that was part of it. It's appealing to her.
She wanted it.
She wanted it.
Yeah.
And she couldn't quit thinking about it.
And then the evil one comes in there with his own agenda, which we just made true in John 8:44.
Yep.
Because he's got his own agenda, but it's lining up with humanity's rebellion, and there you go.
That's exactly.
Well, that's why the whole thing of this First John is about. We keep using the language of like participation, participatory, connected, integrated with Christ, life in Christ, union with Christ. Like these are phrases that we would use because it's not about. You could look at the Epstein thing and you could say those monsters out there. And they are monsters, and I don't know how big this conspiracy is. I don't know who all's involved in it, but I know this: that eventually they will all be held accountable. Everyone will come to justice at some point. And if that happens on this earth, great. But the harder truth of the matter is that the Epstein story is not just about the monsters out there. Like this is what we're all capable of. Yeah. And so what makes you capable of that is continuing to follow down the path of a disordered love or a disordered desire. So that verse you read about is following the desire of your father, meaning the devil, right? Like that is a disordered desire. That is a desire that ultimately leads to the consumption of people, whereas a godly desire, and as we yield and bring our desires under the rule and the reign of Christ, that is a desire that actually doesn't lead to the consumption of people. It leads to the procreation of people. Yeah. I mean, think about the difference between like procreation of people resulting in family, resulting in community, resulting in intimacy, resulting in fidelity, resulting in loyalty, resulting in the cultivation of a home and a crop and food and culture. That's one side of sexuality. And the other side is we're going to consume people for the sake of sexual gratification.
And that's why
the end of that is death.
You're right, Zane. That's why relationship and love becomes the central theme for John. And it's the same like within your own family. I've said this before. We talked about lust and pornography on the podcast. Our good friends at Covenant Eyes, we had a whole podcast about it. And in that, I told you guys, I was like, what changed it for me was that I realized if I'm watching pornography and these women involved in this pornography, that's someone's daughter or wife or girlfriend or mom, and so that's a relationship. I realize that whatever has got them in their life to be doing this, but I'm now lusting over it. Mm-hmm. And think about the relationships and the destructive nature of that. I don't want people looking at my grandkids and my wife in that way. So, you got to make a decision.
What's terrifying about all this is there's only two camps that are going to stand before God. Those in Christ who surrendered to Him and those who are not. And I think in our world, we think, well, if I'm better than somebody else, then I'm going to be okay, right. Even though I don't follow Jesus or have surrendered to Christ.
But not as bad as Epstein.
Just don't work that way.
Doesn't work that way.
I want to be as far away from that camp as possible.
I want to be in light.
And in Jesus, that's as far as you can be away. I did want to bring this up. This other word where it says, and the boasting of what he has and does. Now, the word boast has different
Where's that at?
Greek words.
It's still in 16.
I'm still in 16. Okay. But this particular one is only used twice in the New Testament. So I just discovered this while I was looking. And the other time it's used is kind of fascinating to me, so I wanted to read it. So it's used here, and then it's used in the book of James in chapter 4 and verse 16. But I want to read that little paragraph. It says, now remember, this is right after in James where he talks about the two kinds of wisdom. One that's of the devil.
That's right. And the other's godly wisdom.
Other godly wisdom. So submit yourselves to God, resist the devil. That's 4:7. So he gets to 13, and he says, now listen to you who say, today or tomorrow we'll go to this city or this island or, whatever. Carry on business, make some money. Well, you don't even know what's going to happen tomorrow. What is your life? You're a mist that appears a little while and then vanishes. Instead, you ought to say, if it's the Lord's will, we will live and do this. As it is, here's the time it's used. You boast and brag. All such boasting, that's the same word, is evil.
Yeah.
Anyone then who knows the good he ought to do and doesn't do it sins. And I think it makes sense when you read the 1 John 2 passage.
Remember the first lie, Zach? You will be like God.
You'll be like God. It's so good. I think as we end on this, Jason and I were talking. I guess in the duck blind we were together. I can't remember. He pulled this verse on me, the one that, and this is not from the Father, but from the world. I remember we were in the lair talking, and we were having a little impromptu Bible study, and when you mentioned this, we were talking about different theologies that would say that somehow sin originates with God's sovereignty or something, and we were like, you brought this verse up, like that's ridiculous. Sin could never originate with God.
Yeah.
And I think what we're talking about here is you think about something so heinous like the Epstein files and whatever went down and all the power players that were involved. Here's the thing you can be rest assured in. That is not from God. That's the whole point. It's outside of the will of God. Does God allow it? Yes, he allowed it, obviously, but that is not under the rule and the reign of God's will.
It almost seems like it's anti-Jesus.
Yeah.
Which he addresses in the next paragraph.
Antichrist. All right, we're out of time.
Who is the Antichrist? Next episode. Now we're getting into it.
See you next time. Thanks for listening to the Unashamed podcast. Help us out by leaving a rating and review on Apple Podcasts. And don't miss an episode by subscribing on YouTube. And be sure to click the little bell and choose all notifications to watch every episode.